Strap into your seats and get ready. It's time for the Mortarpod.
Hey everybody, Alex Stephenson from SeemsGoodMagic.com here. Welcome to this week's episode of the Mortarpod, your weekly video podcast for completely custom magic sets based on movies, TV shows, books, your suggestions, or my personal preferences. This week we have a cult classic. It's an English film from a very famous sketch comedy group. You may have heard of them. They're known as Monty Python. So this is going to be a really good one this week. I'm excited for this one. We've got Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Very, very much a cult classic. Very influential sketch group in Monty Python, going on to influence the likes of the Kids in the Hall and, well, actually all sorts of it. Upright Citizens Brigade, any sort of modern day sketch comedy you can think of, definitely had an influence from Monty Python, one of the originators. But let's get into the set this week. This is actually a really, there was just a lot of things to explore in the film, so this was a pretty fun set to make. But let's start it off with the beginning of the film. You're encountered by Arthur, King of the Britons, played by Graham Chapman. And Arthur, King of the Britons, is 3 colorless and 2 white for a 4/5 legendary human knight creature. He's a rare. And he has the mechanic of this set, which is called Round Table. And Round Table is, if a creature dealt damage by this creature this turn would die, exile it instead, then put a vanquish counter on this creature. So Arthur deals damage to something, that creature dies either during combat damage or later in the turn. They are exiled, put a vanquish counter on this creature, and then Arthur also has creatures you control with vanquish counters on them have first strike and vigilance. So once Arthur or any of his round table men or anybody with the round table mechanic kill something, deal damage to it, and it dies, they get the vanquish counter, and then they get first strike and vigilance. So very good. Moving on. Classic scene between Arthur and the Black Knight Guardian. I couldn't just call him Black Knight since that's already a card, but very famous, iconic scene is Arthur encountering a Black Knight who's guarding a bridge, which, by the way, Arthur didn't even need to cross. The Black Knight is guarding a bridge of a very small creek, so there's really no reason for Arthur to even encounter him, and there's really no reason for the Black Knight to be guarding it, but that was why Monty Python was so funny. You gotta give it to those Brits. They got quite the sense of humor. So Arthur encounters the Black Knight Guardian, and they're forced to do battle where Arthur systematically cuts off every single one of the Black Knight Guardian's limbs. And rather than be horrified by it, the Black Knight seems to be oblivious of his wounds. He does not care that he's losing his limbs like crazy. So the Black Knight Guardian is 2 colorless and 2 black for a 5/5 human knight creature. He's a rare. And whenever Black Knight Guardian receives damage, put a -1/-1 counter on Black Knight Guardian. So he slowly gets weaker. As soon as he takes damage, he essentially only has 4 toughness. So if you deal 4 damage to him, he does die. But he is a very efficient beater. And exactly know how to cost him. I don't think he's overpowered, though, because cards like Phyrexian Obliterator, which are admittedly 4 black, but that's a 5/5 trampler that has another ability. And then Desecration Demon is 2 colorless and 2 black for a 6/6 flyer with a pseudo disability. I would hardly even call it a disability since your opponent still has to sacrifice creatures and in the process makes the Desecration Demon stronger. So think of Black Knight Guardian along those same lines as those creatures. And yes, I wanted the -1/-1 counters to sort of represent each of his limbs getting cut off as you're doing battle with him. And then his flavor text, of course, come back here and take what's coming to you. I'll bite your legs off. And this is already, he has no arms or legs left. So all he's left that he can do is bite legs off. Okay, moving on. Arthur encounters Sir Bedivere, played by Terry, not Terry Gilliam. I forget the other. There's two Terrys in the Monty Python group, and I forget the other one's name. But Sir Bedivere is sort of a wise man of a village, and Arthur invites him first because he believes Sir Bedivere to have, good wisdom and information. But the funny thing about Sir Bedivere is everything he says is, by modern day standards, just, ridiculous. The scientific nature of anything he says is just outlandish and untrue. So, Sir Bedivere is a white and a blue for a 1/3 legendary human knight creature. He is also a rare. And his activated ability is 2 colorless, a white and a blue. Reveal the top 2 cards of your library, put one of the cards into your hand and the other on the bottom of your library. And then his flavor text is, and that, my liege, is how we know the earth to be banana-shaped. So just one of many Sir Bedivere's incorrect things that he says that he's trying to pass as fact. If you think Sir Bedivere's ability is too strong, I compared him to Azure Mage. Maybe you don't remember Azure Mage, but Azure Mage was a core set uncommon, part of a cycle that was 1 colorless and a blue for a 2/1 that had 3 and a blue, draw a card. So similar to that, but this is a legend. It's more color intensive. It's also multicolor. So I felt like it could be a upgrade from Azure Mage without being overpowered. And I still think that's true. He's just a very good card who I think would see play. Absolutely. Okay. Next we have Sir Lancelot the Brave, played by John Cleese. This is a 1 colorless, 2 red, and a white mythic legendary human knight creature. He's a 4/3. He also has the round table ability. So when he deals damage to things and they die, exile him, put a vanquish counter on him. Whenever a creature is exiled from a round table ability, Sir Lancelot the Brave deals damage equal to the number of vanquish counters on creatures you control to target creature or player. So you can sort of see how the round table ability interacts with other people who have round table as your creatures start to accumulate vanquish counters. Sir Lancelot gets to factor in all of your creatures' vanquish counters when divvying out damage. So Sir Lancelot, very good. Yes, he would be a pretty highly played card, I think. Very good. Next, we have Sir Galahad the Chaste. So, Sir Galahad, played by Michael Palin. And Galahad's interesting. He's kind of timid, but he's very loyal and trustworthy. And he's actively searching out the Holy Grail for King Arthur. So, Sir Galahad the Chaste is 2 colorless, a white and a blue for a 3/4 human knight mythic creature. He also has the round table ability, and whenever a creature is exiled from a round table ability, you may search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of vanquish counters on creatures you control, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So as he's hunting for the Holy Grail, he can get closer and closer as he vanquishes more, and as your team vanquishes more, he's able to acquire, greater and greater artifact cards from your library. So quite a good effect, almost like a birthing pod for artifacts a little bit, but still requires you to exile things with round table abilities before you can get any of that good stuff. Next we have Sir Robin the Coward, played by Eric Idle. And actually Sir Robin's name in the film was Sir Robin the Not Quite So Brave as Sir Lancelot, but just would not quite fit on that top line. So Sir Robin the Coward is 1 colorless, a green, and a white for a 2/3 rare human knight creature. Also has round table, and has 2 and a white, remove Sir Robin the Coward from combat. And then finally, his static ability. Whenever a creature is exiled from a round table ability, you gain 1 life for each vanquish counter on creatures you control. So he's a coward, so you can remove him from combat. And instead of dealing damage and stuff when he does vanquish stuff, you just gain life because he is presumably staying out of harm's way, staying safe, like a coward. Okay, next we're introduced to the French Provocateur, and this is also played by John Cleese. And the French are portrayed in a not so positive light in this film. They tend to just ridicule Arthur and his knights, so I definitely tried to evoke that through the card. So French Provocateur is 1 colorless and a red for a 1/1 human soldier creature. It's an uncommon, and it has tap. Target creature attacks you this turn if able. If that creature is a night creature, all night creatures attack you this turn if able. So you can make any creature attack you because he provokes well, but when it comes to a night creature, they all have to band together and attack together. So his flavor text is, of course, "You don't frighten us, English pig dogs. Go and boil your bottoms, sons of a silly person. I blow my nose at you." And that's just a small part of his provocations. He does many, many more that are hilarious. Okay, so next we have Robin's Minstrels. So Robin has a troupe of musician minstrels that follow him and play music after him, and many times much to his chagrin, since they tend to tease him when he's a coward as well. So Robin's Minstrels are 2 colorless and a green for a 2/2 common human creature. They have 2 and a green tap. Target creature gets +0/+1 until end of turn, and then you can also sacrifice Robin's Minstrels, and you gain 4 life, so a little Brindlebore-ish in that respect. Certainly a strict upgrade from Brindlebore, since it also has an activated ability, but since cards in core sets typically are weaker than cards in block sets, so that's why you would see a strictly better card like this. And then the flavor text, of course, so you're thinking, why would you be able to sacrifice and gain life? Well, if you recall from the film, in the frozen land of Nador, they were forced to eat Robin's Minstrels, and there was much rejoicing. So not only did they eat the minstrels, they were happy about it, so they didn't have to hear their music anymore. Next, we have the bickering 3-headed giant. So at a certain point in the movie, the Knights of the Round Table have to split up in their search for the Holy Grail. So the bickering 3-headed giant is what Sir Robin and his minstrels encounter in the forest. And the bickering 3-headed giant is a black, red, and a green for a mythic 3/3 giant knight creature. And it has 3 activated abilities for each head. It has a black bickering 3-headed giant gains death touch until end of turn. It has a red, target creature can't block bickering 3-headed giant this turn. And then finally green, target creature must block bickering 3-headed giant this turn if able. And its flavor text is, "I think kill him. Well, let's be nice to him. Oh, shut up." So that's just an example of the bickering that goes on from the 3-headed giant. Certainly a good mythic ability mashup, since if you had 3 green mana, you could technically kill 3 creatures with bickering 3-headed giant. So very strong card, very color intensive, but good ability mashup, and I mean, all sorts of versatile things you can do with the card. So I would say it is quite good and certainly worthy of mythic. Next, we have the Knight Who Says Knee. So there's actually many Knights who say knee, but there's one head Knight who says knee, and that's what this card focuses on, though he's not a legendary creature. So the Knight Who Says Knee is 1 colorless red and a green for an uncommon 2/2 human knight creature. And as Knight Who Says Knee enters the battlefield, any opponent may have you gain control of an artifact he or she controls. If no one does, Knight Who Says Knee enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it and has Intimidate. And the flavor text is a quote from King Arthur, who says, "Those who hear them seldom live to tell the tale." So the Knight Who Says Knee, flavorfully, what this card is trying to portray is the scene in the movie. The knight, King Arthur, is very fearful of the word knee, and it seems to do bodily harm to him for some reason. So the knight makes a demand that King Arthur and Sir Bedivere, who are traveling together still, find them a shrubbery and present it to them. He goes on to make many more demands, but in this case, the shrubbery is the artifact. So if you're able to give the opponent an artifact, then the Knight Who Says Knee is less intimidating and less powerful. Okay, next we have Tim the Enchanter. Now, maybe not remembered by people who haven't played the game for a really long time, but Prodigal Sorcerer and many of those effects were called Tims, and when you would tap and use their activated ability of dealing 1 damage, you were timming your opponent. So I don't know if you knew that, but that is actually a reference to Tim the Enchanter from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So I certainly had to evoke that on his card. And Tim the Enchanter is 2 colorless, a blue and a red for a 1/2 mythic legendary human wizard creature. And he has tap. Tim the Enchanter deals 2 damage to target creature or player, then draw a card, then discard a card. So awesome ability mashup. Not only is he able to shock at will, but he also gets to loot for you. So super strong ability mashup. The one downside to him, two downsides really. He's a legend, so you can't have multiple of him out. But more importantly, he's a 4-mana 1/2. So he's fairly easy to kill, but for such a strong ability, it can very much take the game over in a rapid fashion. Okay, next we have the Killer Rabbit of Caer Banog, who is the guardian to the caves, where Arthur is told by Tim that he must quest next to acquire the Holy Grail. So the Killer Rabbit is, of course, underrated, since it has the appearance of just a normal little rabbit, but with a twist, it seems to fly at his opponents and bite their necks and kill at will. It's an extremely strong and almost impossible to kill rabbit because it's so small and agile. So the Killer Rabbit of Caer Banog is a white and a black for a 1/1 legendary rabbit creature. It's a rare, and it has protection from creatures and death touch. So pretty insane ability mashup, since no creatures are able to kill it in combat, and it can kill any creature in combat. And then the flavor text on the Killer Rabbit of Caer Banog is a quote from Tim the Enchanter, who says, "Well, that's no ordinary rabbit. That's the most foul, cruel, and bad-tempered rodent you ever set your eyes on." So that was right before they go and learn that Tim was, in fact, telling the truth, that it was a killer rabbit. So many knights die, but they go on to kill the rabbit with the next card, which is the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch. So within the possession of King Arthur and his, squad of soldiers and knights, he has an artifact known as the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch, which, if you count to 3 and throw it, it blows up. And very lengthy explanation of how the Holy Hand Grenade works, which I recommend looking up on YouTube if you've never seen it. Very funny scene. So the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch is 3 colorless. It's a legendary artifact and a rare. And it has, at the beginning of your end step, put a time counter on Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch. And when Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch has 3 time counters on it, sacrifice it. It deals 3 damage to target opponent and each creature he or she controls. So they end up defeating the rabbit with the Holy Hand Grenade and making their way into the cave, where they encounter the Black Beast of Ah! And yes, that is what it's called. Much more explanation necessary to explain why it's a screaming noise. That is the Black Beast's name. The Black Beast is very powerful. It ends up eating Brother Maynard, who is the sort of the monk that's traveling around with their crew. So the Black Beast of Auch is 4 colorless, 3 black for a 6/6 mythic legendary horror creature. It has Intimidate, and it also has 3 black and tap. Destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated. Each player loses life equal to that creature's toughness. So able to destroy anything, able to get in for big amounts of damage. The Black Beast is a very strong card, hence why he's mythic and expensive. And you can see Terry Gilliam's art in the picture there. Very funny. Kind of crude art, but very funny. Okay, well, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you, if you've seen Monty Python, the Holy Grail, I hope you appreciated this set. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It still holds up well. Just remember, it's just a lot of satire and very just funny slapstick sort of humor. So I think you would enjoy it. Okay, that's it for this week. Hope you're digging the Fate Reforged drafts. Many more to be posted in the next coming weeks. All right, we'll see you next time.